Hello and assalamu alaikum everyone. I'm Hamzah FreelancingWala and I'm back with another guest. So today I have Miss Stephine with us. She is a dynamic event operations strategist whose work has made a meaningful impact across many businesses, non-profit and corporate sectors. So let's get to know more about her and let's chit chat with her. Hey Miss Stephine, how are you doing today?
I'm well, thank you.
So, Mr. Finn, what inspired you to pursue in the industry of event management?
Yeah, so it's great that it's actually July 4th. Congratulations, everybody. Happy July 4th today. Yeah, so I mentioned that because when I got started, it was, volunteering, doing medieval reenactment from the 14th to the 17th century. And then I started to actually, my first kind of real position was a second lieutenant in the cadet corps in Cheyenne, Wyoming. So it relates to today. Happy July 4th. Uh, I was doing military balls and school dances for my cadet corps.
All right, that's great to know. Thank you so much for sharing that. Yes,
Thank
ma'am.
you.
You. All right. So, what has been the biggest lesson you have learned throughout your journey?
Yeah, the biggest lesson is learning how to do relationships very well. A lot of events, they're based on relationships, right? You need relationships to work for the actual event inside the internal team as well as outside of the event. And then being able to get your stockholders together, being able to drive the actual to the audience, and that's all really around relationships.
All right. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. It's wonderful to know. So, you wanted from your childhood to be a event strategist or organizer, or life took you somewhere else?
Yeah, so when I was young, I was very much doing volunteering whenever possible for, reenacting the medieval ages. I was super pumped with it. I was born to my father, who was a squire for the first night of Eldamere, which is Ontario. And it was all about reenacting the medieval ages. So there would be like feasts and tournaments and going out for the weekend event where they would have about 30 men and a couple of women who would actually charge each other and see who was the last man standing. And whoever was the last man standing would be the prince for the next year. And then they would end up being the king for the following year. And that was all about getting people into one location. And so I was learning events very quickly. Um, and then when it actually came to being in high school, I was actually a cadet in my high school in Cheyenne, Wyoming. And one of the White House officials came to our cadet corps and was assessing our cadet corps to see if whether or not they can continue to go, because we were the 100th year, which was the most oldest cadet corps in the States. So what ended up happening is that they were assessing us. There was a cadet that was in our platoon march. Our sergeant and corporal was not able to be in the same room when the assessment was going on. And the officer went to somebody who was in their first year, very scared, very nervous about actually responding to any questions. Well, the officer asked him, he pointed to the ribbon on his shirt and said, "What is that for?" And the cadet goes, "I forget." And I speak up and I say, "Officer, can I please tell you what that ribbon goes?" And he says, "Okay, normally we don't allow that to question, but since you're trying to respect your fellow cadet, we'll let you answer the question." I said, "Okay." That I'm sorry, but he's in his first year. He's very new. He's a bit nervous. But what that ribbon is the perfect attendance ribbon. I've already earned it 3 times myself, and that's what it's for, sir. And then what ended up happening is I didn't know this, but the assessment that they had done, we were about to completely fail the assessment, and the officer actually went to my sergeant and said, "Sir, we we were just about to fail the whole platoon because our assessment said that these certain standards are supposed to be kept. But what ended up happening in your platoon march said that somebody else was willing to vouch for another person, which is high standards in the military, as being able to vouch for your person right beside you. And because I, as a cadet, decided that I was going to stand up for somebody in my cadet corps, and gave the answer, they said, okay, we're gonna, uh, make this exception for you because you were willing to stand up for your fellow cadet. So the sergeant found out that we actually passed, and then the sergeant wanted to kind of give me a role to kind of help mentor the other students in the platoon, which was over 100 students. And they were actually asking my dad, what skills does Stephine bring to the table? And he started talking about the STA and medieval reenactment and doing events and doing feasts and how I would speak up and do singing in front of the king and queen. And my sergeant goes, okay, well, that sounds interesting. That relates really close to events. And one of the roles that he had was the planes operation and training officer, which related to military balls and school dances. And the sergeant asked my dad, would Stephine be interested in this? And he goes, okay, I think, Stephine would be very good at that. And then that was really my first, role that was I took on was the planes operation and training officer, which I did for 2 years. And I did, I was doing military balls and I was helping out my fellow cadets, and doing helping with the actual volunteer opportunities, booking them around the community and getting them involved.
All right, thank you so much for sharing that, Miss Stephine. Miss Stephine, I'd request if you could check your microphone issue, because when I was like listening your answer, there was like you can say two of your voices were double coming double. So if you could check that out, please.
I don't have any way to check that.
Okay, if yeah, it's better. That's better. No problem. So, Miss Stephine, I wanted to ask you that, as you mentioned, to bring people in one place. So, what truly makes an event attractful to people so that they could come?
Yeah, it's about getting the message correct. The message, is the drive. Some events, like for example, the event I'm doing in New York, there's a lot of wellfulness and mindfulness events out there. There's a lot of wealth information out there. But what makes the actual event in New York different is the key message underneath it. It's prevention to suicide. So that key message is what makes it distinctly different from other events. It's US focused, but the drive is to make sure that we can help be a prevention to suicide, which is a strong topic because a lot of people are actually nervous about speaking about that topic, but it's such a topic that actually needs to be talked about because there is so much of this going on that people need to hear how can we be that support line for this other person that's going through a very hard time. How do we address this correctly so that we can actually be there when they need us?
All right. Thank you so much for sharing with us how does a event become um, like attractive for people to come to one location. So what are some of the main or common challenges you can say event planners are facing nowadays?
Yeah, so it would go to what happened prior to the pandemic. We were actually having a lot of events that were in person prior to pandemic. And then what ended up happening is, everything shut down, everybody's starting to do just remotely. And then now things are starting to open up, and everybody's like, okay, well, we know what the hybrid model is. We've been learning about it and we've been experiencing in some events where there's the in person and then we're driving it to the audience growth. But what is the common go to right now? Is it still a remote? Is it hybrid? Is it in person? And that's the most questionable um, topic right now. And I feel that most people actually want to be able to be in person because what you can do in person is networking, creating opportunities that normally wouldn't be able to receive if you're doing remotely, because actually having that one-on-one at an event is completely different experience. They want to be able to get the audience experience, the actual, there's a drive and a feeling and an atmosphere that comes from actually being in person that you're not necessarily going to get when you're doing remote work. Remote events. You can attend it pretty easily and very comfortably by doing remote, and it's easier to expand on a national level or global level if you're just doing in a remote event. But how do you get people to actually go in person to an in person event or a hybrid model to be the actual people at the event? And I would say because you're actually doing the atmosphere. The atmosphere is different from a remote or an in-person event. And when you're actually in person, there's an actual energy that gravitates in that room that will actually shoot it up higher than had you be in a remote location.
All right, thank you so much for sharing the issues, the small issues event planners are facing. So, Miss Stephine, how do you prepare for uncertain situations during major events? Like there are some situations that happen in a big event where you don't know it and it happens suddenly. So, how do you stay prepared to, you can say, solve those issues?
Yeah, I would say that you can have the best, event manual you can possibly have. You can be planning every single little detail that you possibly could during an event, before the event, during the event, and after the event, and you still have your little hiccups throughout. And I feel that, the best way that you can do it, yes, have your, event manual, have your agenda, be prepared, but also be able to understand that be somebody who can think on your feet in a quick, high pressure environment. That takes a certain amount of intuition, skill set, and calm under pressure. A lot of people can do events, but can you be the one that actually has a calm mind and energy when those things happen?
So it mainly depends on this one question.
Yeah, I would say it's being able to be calm under pressure. That's one of the things that why I wear a lot of diamonds, because I'm very calm under high pressure environments. I can actually be more effective in those atmospheres than um, some can, because I actually have the cadet and years of experience of being able to stand up when things are a bit rough and under pressure.
All right, that's great to know. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. So, how do you balance creativity with planning?
Yeah, I love the creativity part. When I was a kid, I actually used to draw. Um, I know it sounds silly, but I would actually take a piece of paper that would have a picture. Like, for example, my dad actually brought me a picture of my grandfather's dog and said, okay, reproduce this. And I took an actual paper with that was completely blank with a pen, and I actually drew the picture exactly the same with all the lines and everything, and made it in a duplicate picture. And it was just like an artistic skill that was actually hereditary in my family. My grandmother actually used to paint completely on glass. So I feel that the artistic part is definitely an event. You need to be able to have a visual that is going to communicate to your audience why they need to be a part of the event, how professional is this event, how clear is your message throughout it. And that's why I also went to media and communications in college, because I wanted to be able to communicate my message very, very clearly. And I knew that that was something that I was going to need as an event operations professional, is to be able to shoot the right message when it came to events, and how to correctly have a good picture or photographer was a part of the actual class. And so I felt that those things were super important for me, doing this work, because the right message throughout is what's going to drive your audience.
That's great to know. That's great to know, Miss Stephine. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. So, Miss Stephine, as a event planner, how do you use artificial intelligence to make your work easier?
Yeah, so I love ChatGPT. I use it quite a bit, but like I was just doing a sponsorship package last yesterday. I was using it to create a 8 to 10 page sponsorship package with the material and stuff. And as much as it is awesome to help me get that done pretty quickly, I was still in there doing making sure that the logo was consistent throughout, because ChatGPT kept changing the picture on me on my logo, and I had to keep using Canva to make sure that the logo throughout was the same. But it's great for doing contracts and doing agreements and sponsorship packages, and also doing my social media for my little posts and stuff like that. So I really love using AI, but you have to be, you need to be user friendly on the other side, and you need to have your brain still working to make sure that all your material is used to the best ability.
That's great to know. So it mainly depends on the person who is using the tool, not the tool.
Yes.
All right, that's wonderful to know. So, what does leadership mean to you?
Yeah, leadership is, I really strongly feel that you grow, you learn, and then you open doors for others. So what I say is, we have experience, we've learned to grow throughout, but when we open a door for not just ourselves, but open the door for others, we're teaching others how to open opportunities for other people. And I feel that some people could say that they're experts to certain material and stuff, but I feel that at the end of the day, they also have to ask their questions. So I've been mentored from some really high people in my past, and still friends with a lot of them. But when I asked them, how do I get to what you're doing at your level? And they said, well, take the material of mentorship and use it to your best ability, but understand that at the end of the day, you might still have questions. And, your scope is, you could be an expert at one thing, but then still be able to reach out to other people who have the expertise in something else. So I really felt that that was something I really went to as key knowledge, because I found out that a lot of high level professionals, they actually have what they say is, they're really great at this thing, but they actually have a key team, a team of experts that bring certain skills to the table that they might not actually have themselves. So now you actually have a team of people who may have the answers and they're willing to ask others that they might not have the answers themselves. And I feel that that is really what empowers leadership, is be willing to understand your own knowledge, but be willing to reach out when you might not have necessarily the answer yourself.
That's awesome to know. Thank you so much for the insightful explanation. So, what is the secret to building to build wonderful partnerships? Is it communication? Is it empathy, or what is it?
Yeah, I would say it's both. Communications is throughout, empathy is how you relate to other people. And, at the end of the day, you need to have a very kind heart. Be willing to understand these are people with their own lives and their own personal stuff, and they're trying to deal with the things that they're dealing with on their own time too. And then understand that this communication, this relationship is a value for the both of you. And if you can bring value for both of you, then you understand that it's not just about, what it is that you need, it's also what do they need and what can actually help them and their company. So I feel that that's super important.
All right. Thank you so much, Miss Stephine, for sharing the importance of communication and empathy in building strong partnerships. So, lastly, Miss Stephine, thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you so much for sharing of us about yourself, your life, and your work. So, lastly, any advice you would like to give to my audience so that they could be motivated or learn something from you?
Yeah, so I would say follow with your heart. Your heart will tell you what is the best relationship to be in and how to go about it. And also learn how to grow, um, learn, grow, and open doors for others. Be willing to invest in your own knowledge, then be able to grow to the point that you can actually help others, and then be able to open a door for not just yourself, but others as well. And then that creates the opportunities for multiple people, because when you open a door for somebody else, they open a door for somebody else. And then the mentorship grows throughout and it becomes like a forest of knowledge and wealth and community impact.
All right, Miss Stephine. Thank you so much for sharing that wonderful advice. And thank you so much for coming on the show again. I really appreciate your precious time you have given. So, yes, everyone, she was Miss Stephine, the wonderful event manager. I hope you guys enjoyed and you guys must have learned something about her. I'll see you guys with another guest. Till then, goodbye.